Hi, I'm Andrew Cain, State Politics Editor at the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and with me is my colleague, politics columnist Jeff Schapiro, and we're here to talk about Super Tuesday. As you know by now, Virginia is one of 15 states going to the polls today, and we're going to talk about some of the things to watch for as the day progresses. Jeff, let's start out on the Republican side, where we have former President Donald Trump and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. What are some of the things that you're looking for this evening?
You know, the appeal that Governor Haley has made has been largely directed at the suburbs, where there is a, if you will, a more comparatively moderate strain of republicanism apparently lingering. Trump is much more interested in the countryside and sort of those working class quarters of the state. The polling, for what it's worth, indicates that this is going to be a fairly lopsided result in favor of the former president. But once again, as we've seen in New Hampshire and South Carolina, Governor Haley coming out with between 35 and 40+% of the vote, that clearly indicates that not all is well within the Republican coalition.
It's going to be interesting geographically how this breaks down. Of course, we didn't have a Republican primary here in 2020 because Trump was the incumbent at that time, but we have some data from 2016 in which Trump edged Florida Senator Marco Rubio by fewer than 3 percentage points. Of course, that was a much larger field at that point, and it was interesting that Rubio captured a lot of the population centers in that contest, except he did not win the big cities in Hampton Roads. What do you think accounts for that?
You and I have discussed this before, and I think that perhaps the military presence, maybe the blustery Trump style is a factor as well. It was interesting, Governor Haley was in town last week. She made an appearance in the Richmond suburbs and then was in the Northern Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C. She didn't go into those Hampton Roads suburbs. Maybe that's an indication that the Trump brand of republicanism endures in that defense-rich region.
Now, on the Democratic side, there's no suspense, really. We have President Biden, who faces Dean Phillips, who's a congressman from Minnesota, and we have author Marianne Williamson, who had suspended her campaign and then announced that she was coming back in last week. But Jeff, you've reported that there could be sort of an interesting wrinkle to watch here after what occurred in Michigan. Tell folks what that's about.
Virginia has a significant number of Arab American voters. Most of them are concentrated, or they're most heavily concentrated in Northern Virginia. And there's a good deal of anger and concern over President Biden's policy in Gaza. And one of the things that these Arab American voters, relatively new to the Democratic coalition, only go back to the late 80s, as well as others who are critical of the Biden policy, are being urged to go into the Democratic primary and vote for Marianne Williamson. Now, so if there are some significant spikes in certain areas of the state, that might be a measure of a Michigan-like, maybe Michigan-light protest vote.
One of the things that Jeff and I were talking about earlier is that while some folks might be new to Super Tuesday, Super Tuesday is not a new construct, and the Virginia governor had a lot to do with its origins.
Going back to the 80s, Chuck Robb, who was the Democratic governor from 82 until 86, a great believer in the centrist approach to large D Democratic politics. The idea behind Super Tuesday was to promote more moderate, more centrist, more practically minded Democrats. Things didn't quite work out that way, at least in the Virginia result. It was a crowded field. Robb's clear favorite was Al Gore, the senator from Tennessee. Jesse Jackson won the Virginia Super Tuesday primary.
So we'll see if there are any surprises in store in Virginia. As far as turnout goes, in 2016, the Republican side, we saw just over 1 million voters. Virginia has about 6 million registered voters. So
6 billion, 6 million.
6 million. I meant to say million, of course. So we'll see what the turnout looks like. So I want to thank Jeff Schapiro for joining me to talk about today's voting, and we invite all of you to follow our coverage on richmond.com and in the Richmond Times-Dispatch.